so we will go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us at the Dixboro Road Pathway and Intersection Project meeting virtually. Welcome to our Zoom session today. So let's jump right in. My name is Emily Kaiser and I am the communications manager here at the Road Commission. I will be your meeting host today, and then we'll also be, I'll introduce the other people that you'll hear from today as well. Our meeting today, we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to go over just a few housekeeping slides and just kind of give you the lay of the land, and then I'll hand it over to our project manager who's going to talk more about the work that we've got planned this year. And then after that, we will open it up to Q&A. So our project manager today is Michelle Ford. She's the project manager for this work. And so she's going to be our presenter. You can see her contact information here. You don't have to scramble to write this down. We'll show you a couple times in the presentation Michelle's contact info. I'll also show you towards the end of this as to how you can find the contact information on the website. So we've got it in a couple different places for you. And then she'll also be joined by Aaron Burkholtz, who is our senior project manager of design and construction. And so Aaron, his contact information is here as well, also available on the website. So we will be hearing from Michelle and Aaron today. And then just a couple housekeeping items. So the meeting audio and video is being recorded, and we will post it to our website. I'll show you where. In the next day or two. It will also get posted to our YouTube channel, the Road Commission's YouTube channel. Towards the end of this, when we go to our Q&A period, you will be asked to virtually raise your hand to ask a question. And at that point, I will ask you to unmute one at a time, and then we'll go from there if you want to ask your question verbally. I'll provide more detailed instructions as we get a little bit closer. And then also chat is enabled on this meeting. And so if you want to ask your question in chat to me, then I will share that with the group when we do our Q&A towards the end of the presentation as well. So again, there'll be two ways that you can ask questions during this, once we get to the Q&A period, either the chat, or I'll provide instructions as to how you can virtually raise your hand and then ask your question verbally. Okay, and with that, I will hand it over to Michelle to tell us more about what we've got planned.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Emily. And Emily is the one controlling our slides today, so I will be asking her to advance the slides as we go along. We're going to review the two different aspects of this project. So we have a pathway and we have some intersection improvements. So first we're going to hit the pathway. Emily, next slide. So this is a continuation of phase 1 of the Dixboro Trail. This is an Ann Arbor Township project, and they applied for Transportation Alternative Program, or we call them TAP funds, to help them to fund this project. And so they also have gotten other grants and donations to help them build this. It's going to connect the Mathi Botanical Gardens to the Marshall Nature Area, and it's part of their regional, county, and township trail system. So it's going to be a nice connection to get other pieces of the county together. So next slide. So I'll walk you through what the pathway is going to look like. So if you went to our public meeting that we had, it's been quite some time ago now. I think it was in December of 2019. Some of these will look familiar to you. So this shows the portion from Mathi Botanical Gardens to Ravine Court. So it starts down at the northern entrance to the Botanical Gardens and goes up alongside the east side of Dixboro Road. We're going to cross over at Garden View. There'll be a mid-block crossing there, and I have some pictures of examples of what that will look like coming up. Then it'll travel on the west side of the road going northward. You can see there at Garden View and at Ravine Court that we're going to connect the existing sidewalks to the trail to make it easier for the people coming out of the subdivision to get to the trail safely. So next slide. So between Ravine Court and Amanda Drive, it goes along the west side of the road. It's going to be on the back of curb. I'll have some pictures so you can see what that's going to look like. There's also a culvert along there that we need to extend out a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And the green areas on this drawing show kind of the limits of disturbance. So you can see that we're within the right-of-way through all of this. And in some of the areas, especially as you get closer to Amanda Drive, though it's pretty close to the current grade, so there's not going to be huge amounts of disturbance outside of the trail footprint. So keep going. And then we go across Amanda Drive. Once again, we're connecting those existing sidewalks into the trail. And then the trail will diverge a little bit from the curb to get it across Plymouth Road. That allows us to have room for some signal items. We have to have a controller cabinet for the signal. It'll go across Plymouth Road. There'll be a signalized crosswalk with a countdown, kind of a traditional crosswalk box that you've seen. And then it's going to travel inside the Marshall Nature Area to go up to their existing parking lot up there. There's a little driveway. It's going to connect into that parking lot. So you can go to the next slide. So in general, the typical cross section is going to be, we're going to construct a larger road shoulder. Right now, there's only a foot or two of paved shoulder out there. So we'll be adding a 4-foot shoulder, then some curb and gutter. And then the pathway will actually be about 12 feet wide of asphalt. The 2-foot clear zone between the pavement and the curb will have some corrugations in it. I have a picture of those for you so you can see, and that will help as be a visual and a physical deterrent for people if they're getting a little bit too close to the curb. And then there'll be a clear zone over on between the end of the pathway and the rest of the grassy area. So go ahead, Emily. So I know some people like to see construction drawings. So this just kind of shows you that when we build the trail, we don't just throw asphalt down on the ground. We actually build a foundation for it. What this doesn't show is there's actually also going to be some storm sewer beneath it to help us with drainage so we don't have any water issues out there. We put an aggregate base down. We typically like limestone so that it gives us a good foundation, and then there'll be a couple of layers of asphalt on top of that as well. So you can see here how we build it up to get a good foundation, and it'll be a good stable trail for us. Next slide. This is the same thing on the west side of Dixboro Road. It's just basically a mirror image of the one that you just saw. Go to the next slide. What this shows is that one area where we have a culvert crossing. So the dashed red line there shows you what the current grade is out there, what the current ground is. So we have to fill up on top of that in order to get our trail done. So the red rectangle shows how we're going to extend the existing culvert out, and then we'll fill on top of that. And because there's going to be a little bit of a drop off there, we are putting up a safety railing in that area just so that it will keep everyone onto the trail and there won't be any danger of someone falling off into that. So that's how we're going to extend out that culvert. Next slide. So this is what's existing out there. This happens to be between Garden View and Ravine Court. And so this just kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. You see the roadway over on the right-hand side. There's a small shoulder there. We're going to be constructing the trail between that roadway in that grassy area. And to give you an idea of scope, you see the electrical poles that are there and then the berm over on the left. Neither of those will be impacted. We are not moving those electrical poles. The entire thing will be built between the roadway and those poles. So next slide. So this is an example of a trail that we have built similarly. This happens to be out on Textile Road. So you see that we have a widened shoulder there on the right, and then the curb. And then you can see those little kind of corrugations in the pathway. And like I said, that's a physical and a visual deterrent. So if someone is riding a little bit too close to the curb or something, they'll feel a little bit of a rumble. It's almost like a rumble strip that you would put on a roadway, and it just helps alert people that they're getting a little bit too close. And then we have the 10-foot wide pathway on the other side of those corrugations. So that just gives you a little visual of what we expect it to look like. Next, Emily. This shows, this is an example of what the mid-block crossing will look like. So there'll be a big mast arm out there. This is the one that's going to be crossing over around Garden View. It has what we call rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And that's just those little flashing lights to help alert drivers that someone is there. The crosswalk sign also is illuminated. And I do believe on this project that we have flashers up on top of those mast arms as well. So in addition to the ones on the side, you'll see them on the mast arms. And then, like I said, the crosswalk sign is illuminated down. So anyone who is within the roadway at nighttime, they'll be able to be seen from oncoming traffic. One thing to note is that these beacons do not stop traffic. And there will be signs alerting the pedestrians that traffic does not stop. So you still do need to take caution, and it is alerting traffic, alerting the motorist that there's someone there, but you still as a pedestrian need to watch the traffic and cross when it's safe. Next slide. In addition to the pathway project, we partnered this project with one of our Washtenaw County Road Commission projects, and it's going to be at the intersection of Dixboro Road and Plymouth Road. So we're upgrading the existing signals. We're putting in all new mast arms, and we're also adding a right turn lane on southbound Dixboro Road to Plymouth Road. So we received a grant. We call it a CMAQ grant. That's Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant. There's been a lot of traffic that backs up there. And so there can be an air quality concern. We get grants through special funding to help us with projects like that. So we are putting in that right turn lane on southbound, which will be adjacent to our trail. So next slide, Emily. So this is a picture of one of our recent upgrades to an intersection, and you see the big new mast arms that are there. This particular one also has a pedestrian walk signal, and it has a right-hand turn lane. So it'll look something similar to this once it's done. Next slide. So I wanted to give you, this is a construction information meeting. So I wanted to give you some of the things that you can plan on seeing during construction. And we have a little saying here at the Road Commission that it's going to get ugly before it gets pretty. So there's a lot of work to be done, and the contractor will decide the order that he does this. But in general, this is the order that we tend to see things happen. There'll be clearing, then underground work, earthwork. We'll put that base course, the limestone in, curb and gutter, asphalt paving, restoration, and signal work. So we've got some examples of each of those for you. Emily? So the first thing you're going to see is some clearing work. Now this work right now is scheduled to begin on Monday, March 29th. And they come in and there is some tree removal on this project, although not huge amounts. There'll also be some brush removal and then clearing of just some of the topsoil and items along the ground. Next slide. The underground work is where we're going to put in some of that storm sewer. And I want to caution you that we dig big holes for this. So there's going to be a large, deep hole going in the ground. And rest assured, we will fill it in, and it won't be there when we're done, but it can be a little concerning as you're driving by the road that it could be a 5 to 10 foot deep hole that we're putting in storm sewer, and that is to allow for water to collect there and capacity for that to happen, because we don't want any drainage issues out there once we're all said and done. But it involves large equipment, lots of earthwork, and there will be a hole. Next one. Then once we get that storm sewer in, we're going to fill in the hole, and then we have to start putting in the amount of dirt that we're going to need to construct the trail. We have to get it to kind of the level that we need it. And the next slide, Emily, will show that this is what we call grading. So this gets it to the approximate level that we need it to be. In some areas, you're going to dig a little deeper. In some areas, you're going to fill. This project in general stays pretty close to the existing grade because we're right there near the side of the road, but there still is going to be a little adjustment here or there, once again, to make sure that the water is flowing in the direction that we want it to. We don't want it impacting any private properties or anything like that. We need to collect it and handle it, and we'll make sure that it's going in the right direction. So next one. Then we put down that base course, which for us is going to be limestone. And they go in and it's crushed up. They place it there and they roll it to compact it. They're going to test it, make sure it's at a certain compaction so that we don't have any settlement issues afterwards. And then next slide. Then we're going to probably put curb and gutter on. Once again, in different areas, these things may vary a little bit in the order, but usually we put the curb and gutter on after we've got that aggregate down. This is also where we'll put some drainage structures in. The picture on the right is where there's a catch basin, and we do have some of those throughout the project. So, you'll see the little curb cuts and the little drainage structures to help us collect water throughout the project. Next slide. And then the pavers will come in. So there's a couple different layers of asphalt paving. We put down, I believe it's going to be 2 inches of one mix, and then we add another 2 inches on top of that. That gets all rolled out, compacted, tested, all of that to make sure, once again, that it's all stable and constructed the way we need it to be. Next. And then they'll do some restoration. So any area that's been disturbed, we will go out there and we will, this shows what we call a mulch blanket. They put down grass seed and then they cover it up to help the grass germinate. And the contractor is required to restore all areas that have been disturbed by the construction. So, rest assured that when we dig those big holes and when we're doing that earth disturbance, that we will restore the area when it's completed. Next slide. So for the traffic signal work, that can involve digging more big holes. So this is a recent intersection that we did just a couple weeks ago, and the picture on the left is them getting ready to put in a foundation for one of the mast arms. And there's a lot of utilities out there, there's a lot of stuff going on, and many times we have to excavate quite a bit to make sure that we're not interfering with any of that other work that's out there. And so it can entail a big hole. And then on the right shows that they had poured the new foundation. So the one on the right, the larger one, is for one of our new mast arms. And then the smaller one on the left there was for one of the pedestrian signals so that people can push the button to go across the roadway. Next slide. So in order for this to work, of course, Plymouth Road, Dixboro Road is a pretty busy intersection. So we can't take one set of mast arms down and wait a couple of months before we put the next set of mast arms up. So you may see out there both mast arms at the same time. So we have to put the new ones up, get everything complete, and then when we're ready to switch it over, we will pull that old one down. But there could be an overlap, well, there will be an overlap time slightly so that the traffic intersection is never without a signal. Now we don't know the exact timing of when this is going to happen, but we will keep you informed as we go along. Next slide. Let's see. I also wanted to mention, we have that culvert extension that's over on the on the west side. So I have this wrong, I apologize. This should say culvert on east side of Dixboro Road. So the culvert on the west side is the one that we're going to extend. In order for us to get our permit to do that work, that culvert comes across Dixboro Road and it empties out on the east side here. So this is the existing culvert, and you can see that it's the term we use is perched, which means underneath it there, you can see there's no dirt or anything under it, and the water is just kind of coming out the bottom of it. Well, this is concerning to the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. So they asked us as part of this project, and we needed it for our permit, was that we're going to come in and do some work around this culvert. Now what we're going to do is put some riprap around it, some stone, and we're going to grout it in to stabilize that area underneath the culvert so that it doesn't deteriorate anymore. So what this shows is that sometimes in order to get permits for one part of a project, we actually have to do something else to in order to qualify for the permit. And this is one of those things. We're not touching this side of the road. We're not touching this culvert, but because we are touching the other side of it, Eagle had decided that we had to do work on this in order to receive the permit for the other side. So next slide. So as far as the schedule goes, I did mention that our clearing and tree removals are supposed to begin on Monday, March 29th is our current schedule with our contractor. That culvert work for that, the riprap underneath the other one that I just showed, and then the extension, also part of our Eagle permit, is that there's a time of year restriction on that. So we have to wait until after June 30th to do that particular work. We will be working on other parts of the trail, but for that one small little section right there in the water, we have to wait until after June 30th. The rest of the work, our schedule shows that we will be complete by later this fall. The contractor will decide the exact schedule of the rest of the work. Those new traffic signals, the mast arms we call them, that's the big tall black arm that the signal itself goes on, those have to be ordered and they take a long time to come, and it can be 4 to 5 months before we can get those delivered and have them put up. So that will be probably one of the later parts of the project. They will probably build the trail portion of the project before they get to putting the rest of those signals up later probably in the late summer sometime. But once again, we'll be starting this coming Monday, finishing by late fall, and the rest is up to the contractor. Next slide. So there will be some impacts to traffic. Right now, we are not planning to close Dixboro Road for any length of time. There will be some daytime shoulder and lane closures, and we'll have flagging operations. And there will be a couple of short-term road closures. Once again, with a flagger, we have not only the signal installation, because when you put those big arms up, it's not safe to have people traveling underneath those arms during erection. So we'll close it shortly while we put those arms up. And there's also, just south of Garden View, we're putting in a culvert under the road, under Dixboro Road. And so we'll have to do a short-term closure while we do that work. We do ask that you be patient during that time. There will be a few delays during the day. And so obey the flaggers. If we find, we'll be monitoring the situation. If we find that there are issues with people not obeying our traffic regulators and such, then we'll have to call the local law enforcement and ask them to come and help us with some of the enforcement of those traffic controls. Next slide. So in general, for mail delivery, it should not be impacted, and neither should trash pickup. In the subdivisions, we will not be blocking any access to those subdivisions. You know, it's possible that as we're doing construction on the entrance of one side, you may have to go for a day to the other entrance, something like that. But in general, you will have full access to your homes. The picture that we have here is something from one of our projects last year. And it's just a reminder to us that even as a pedestrian, this is a construction zone and it should not be accessed by pedestrians or people in bicycles. We had a trail project last year. The trail projects are very popular and very enticing for people to come look. And we were out in an active construction zone last year and came across these small bicycles. And it was a family had come and they just decided that they thought the trail was cool and they wanted to look and see the big equipment at work. And it is, it's not safe for the pedestrians and bicyclists. And so we ask that you obey any traffic control that we have out there that includes pedestrian barricades or any other barricade device that we have, and stay outside of the work zone. And this is just another thing on restoration that, as I said, any disturbed areas will be restored before the end of the project. Next slide. And this is, you can find out more. So Aaron, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Michelle. Just a few additional notes. And Michelle did a great job of covering so many aspects of this work and providing a great summary of the different parts of this project. But just some things I'd like to note, and some things that I'd like to stress to everyone here at the meeting. As she said, it's so important. It's used so often that it's become a cliche, but safety is job one. And we need to ensure that not only do we promote the safety of those within the work zone, the construction operators, the laborers, the flaggers, but also the motorists and those that might be interested in seeing the construction activities. Michelle used the word enticing. It's very enticing for some people to want to view the construction operations. And I feel fortunate with the work that I've done for 20 plus years that I've had the opportunity to see some really interesting and incredible construction operations. But everyone needs to be very thoughtful about that. The work zone is inherently a hazardous place. There's large equipment. Many of those pieces of equipment have large blind spots, and the operators are quite skilled at what they do, but everyone needs to be mindful of not entering that work zone, that construction influence area. Pedestrians and bicycles need to maintain a safe distance from those ongoing activities. To promote everyone's safety, it's so important that motorists comply with the direction given by the flaggers. Michelle had mentioned that we're going to have lane closures related to this work, just based on the space that's available for the work to be conducted, and the scope of the work and the size of the equipment that needs to be used to accomplish that work. There will be lane closures. And it's not lost on us that this is a busy section of Primary County Road. And so it's going to result in traffic backups. There will be delays. And so for those motorists that might just be traveling through here as part of their daily commute, they might want to consider following a different route during this construction. Both the trail construction and the improvement, the addition of the right turn lane and the signal work up at Plymouth and Dixboro. Motorists may want to consider following an alternate route to try to avoid those traffic backups. She also mentioned that we've had the experience of working on other segments of trail. I was fortunate years ago to have worked on, at the time, what we referred to as Dixboro Road, the Dixboro Road Trail. Now the name is the Mathi Botanical Gardens Trail, and it's that portion between the intersection of Geddes and Dixboro and Mathi Botanical Gardens. And really, that's been such a great asset to the community, the partnership between so many involved in that project. Just to name a few, the Road Commission, Ann Arbor Township, the University of Michigan, so many that contributed their time and effort and funding, their money to that project and that improvement. But having worked on that trail, what was so striking was as we were doing the work, as we were performing the construction, we got to a point where we had placed the aggregate base, the gravel, and people started to use the trail. It was very difficult to keep people off of the trail at that point. And again, we do have an open to traffic date that the contractor is working towards to get the trail completed, to get the right turn pocket and the signal work completed up at Dixboro and Plymouth. And we would caution people from using the trail too soon. It is still an active construction zone. Even once the aggregate base, the gravel base has been placed, it is still an active construction zone. So people need to be leery of that and be aware of that. Michelle mentioned that the trail project involves Transportation Alternative Program funding, so TAP funds. That is a federal aid program. So those are federal dollars that are allocated for this type of work, for trail improvements. And as such, since the nature of that funding requires the involvement of an Act 51 agency, the Road Commission is an Act 51 agency as defined by the state of Michigan. And as such, we've partnered with the township on this project to bring it to fruition. It also involves the Michigan Department of Transportation. Again, with the source of this funding being federal aid, the project is bid through the Michigan Department of Transportation, and the contract that exists between the contractor who's going to perform this work, their name is Erie Construction, and that contract is actually with the Michigan Department of Transportation. The Road Commission administers the project on behalf of MDOT. So just a point of clarification there. We will have an inspector on the job site while the work is being performed. We're working with a consulting firm, an engineering consulting firm. Their name is Fishbeck. We've worked with Fishbeck several times in the past successfully on pathway projects, trail projects. And so we'll have an inspector on the job site. Fishbeck is also supporting the effort with construction staking and laying out the staking for the job. I also wanted to mention the schedule, and Michelle touched on that. We do expect the tree clearing to begin next week. We need to get those trees that have been identified, we need to have them felled, have them on the ground before the end of this month under the EGLE permit guidelines. That schedule will most assuredly, the overall schedule will most assuredly change. We're fairly certain on the tree removals, but there's a lot of variables that influence a construction schedule. I've often said anytime a contractor puts a shovel in the ground, there's a chance that we're going to identify an unexpected challenge, that we may have utilities that were not expected to be in conflict with the work that are found to be in conflict with work. And then adjustments need to be made. There are also variables such as the lead time needed for the signals to be constructed, for those steel mast arms to be fabricated and provided. So again, there are a lot of variables. We do our best working with the contractor to maintain the schedule, but the best way for the public to be aware of what the schedule is and potential changes in that schedule is to follow the project updates that are provided via the Road Commission website. And Emily, our communications manager, does an outstanding job of keeping the public updated as we work on the duration of a project. So again, to note a specific schedule at this point would not be wise because there will be adjustments throughout the project. And in a general sense, the expectation is the contractor will begin the work later this spring, and that they'll complete the work this fall with changes within that duration, reflecting things that we might experience in the field that are unexpected. So just a few additional notes there. Emily, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Michelle. So as we said at the beginning, I'm going to just pause here for a second and show you how you can find out more about this project and subscribe to those project updates, as Aaron had mentioned. We do on all of our major projects, including this one, each construction season, we offer project updates via email that you can subscribe to receive. We already have about 190 or 170 people that have subscribed to receive updates about this project. If you're not on that list now or yet, I can show you how to do that. And then we've got Michelle's contact information here. So let me pause my share here for a second and get to this website. So as you can see from my, hopefully everybody can see my computer screen here. Okay, Michelle's nodding her head, yes. And so as you can see here, our website at the Road Commission is WCRoads.org. And this is the home page. So if you were to go to WCRoads.org to find the page that I have a link to in your chat as well, I'll include it again. You'd go to this current projects page. And then on this current projects page, we have both a map that we'll look here in a second, a map of all of the different major projects that we have going on throughout the county this construction season. It's going to be a busy one. And you can find the Dixboro Road project here. And then you can click this more info for the project page itself. We also have a listing of all of the project pages too, if you prefer to see a tile versus a map. We like maps here at the Road Commission. And so here is the pathway website. And so we've got information, general information about the project. We will update this as we get closer and we know more about the actual pathway construction. We've got some general dates here. And then this is where we will put project updates. So throughout construction, every couple of weeks, depending on what's going on, we will provide a summary. We like to do pictures when we can, because as Aaron said, this is some cool stuff going on, but we just like to show that versus having people go to the construction site to see it. So we'll provide information throughout on this updates. You've also got Michelle's contact information here. Under this helpful links part, we've already got slides from our 2019 design meeting that we had, our public meeting. This is where I'll post a link to the recording from today's meeting and the slides from today's meeting. And then down here, you can select, you can click here to subscribe to project updates. And so you can enter your email address in here. Shameless plug, we also do a lot of road advisories for just general road work going on, not necessarily connected to a project. But if you want to receive those types of advisories for your township, you can subscribe to receive any township type alerts here. And then we also, some of our other emails that we offer. And then you'll just want to make sure that you select the Dixboro Road pathway when you're trying to subscribe. And so again, we will post a lot of information about it on that project page. And then you've always got Michelle's contact information here if you've got questions during construction. And this is where we'll post a follow-up to this meeting as well. So let me get back to the slides here. And I know we've got some good questions coming in already. So with that, we will move on to our Q&A. So if you are joining us today from your computer or from your smartphone, at this time, if you want to ask a question, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can always ask a question in chat, and we've got some that have already come in. So we'll go through those and kind of mix those in with those who are wanting to raise their hand. If you'd like to verbally ask your question from your computer or smartphone, you want to first click on reactions here at the bottom. Zoom has changed recently, so it used to be under participants. I know I chatted with somebody in chat already in this meeting where it's still under participants for them. So look for either reactions or participants, and then you should see an option there at the bottom to raise your hand. And then if you're joining us from your touch-tone phone today, all you need to do is dial *9, and then I will unmute people one at a time. You know, we ask that there's not a time limit on these questions, but we do ask you to be respectful of everybody else's time. We do have about 45 people in the meeting today, so we want to try to get through as many questions as we can. And then we just ask that you share your name and before you ask your question. So we do have questions in chat, but we do have a raised hand. And if anybody else wants to raise your hand, now is the time. But let's see, this first one we have is, The username is wsun@nsysco.com. So you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead with your question if you want to introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Yeah, this is Wei Sun, one of the property owners, 75 property owners in the Phase 1 Framing Creek. And thank you, Michelle, Aaron, and for your detailed information for the construction. And also thank you, Emily, for hosting the event. We heard good information about the details of the construction. We thought this meeting, public hearing, is a two-way traffic to hear the feedback from these impact property owners, because we do have several concerns, but we didn't hear during your presentations. I'd like to be very quick. First, this is a 14 feet wide shared passage. So virtually you can have a 2-passenger vehicle ride side by side. So that will make this trail is very close, virtually next to our backyard. So this will make our subdivision look very congested and cheap. Since the house prices, they are mutually referenced, so this will impose a negative impact to the property values for all these 75 houses. Second is the safety. People have been using our, the subdivision space road as a free parking without paying the meters. So with this new trail, you will aggregate this possibility that make our private space much more public. And we have 48 property owners sign a petition to ask the road commission and the township to consider the west side of the Dixboro Street as the alternative, because you started from UFM property, so which is on the east side of the street. So then you cross too earlier and then cross over our backyard. So we ask you if you can extend your east side pass a little bit further around the pole barn area, then you can turn west. So then you can minimize the negative impact to the entire subdivision. So we heard of the construction detail. We thought this two-way traffic for public hearing, but instead this more almost like a one-way notification and tell us the construction will start in 6 days. So we were very surprised. And I believe your public funded project need to have a detailed assessment regarding the negative impact to the adjacent property owners. But during your presentation, we didn't hear any of this. So that's our major concern.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Michelle, I think that if you want to address a few of the items, I do want to say in the advertisement for this meeting, was a construction information meeting. This is not a public hearing. Those are two very different things in road commission world. But yeah, this is a construction information meeting. That's why we focus on the construction project process. We did have a design information meeting where we did solicit feedback back in 2019. I know that feels like a long time ago, but Michelle, do you want to talk to a few of them? And then I think Matt wanted to answer as well.
Sure. So thank you for all of that, Wei. I know that we have spoken with you in the past and we have noted your concerns, and they are things that we took into consideration, and we can do more follow-up with you personally, just in the interest of everybody's time, if you would like. I do want to note that you said that it was going to be a 14-foot wide path. I want to correct that, and it actually will only be 12 feet on the back of curb, and that includes a 2-foot clear zone where those corrugations are going to be. So it's not quite as wide as you're saying, and it really is not where 2 cars could go back and forth. It is made to be compliant with the American with Disabilities Act, which means that you should be able to have wheelchairs go side by side or something of that nature, so that someone in a wheelchair and a bicycle could pass safely, or pedestrians and someone, you know, with a stroller or something can pass safely. So that's how those widths are decided. That is a federal thing, that 10 feet is what we're required to have. So I think, Matt, did you want to address some of the others?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the comments. Certainly, this project is a partnership with the Ann Arbor Township. We've worked with them during the design phase, and certainly had our public information meeting, heard from a variety of folks, and presented obviously some options. But in the end, this is the plan that we're going to build, and that was come to that conclusion in partnership with the township. And ultimately, we have to adhere to all the grant requirements. This is a federal aid grant, this TAP, we call it. It stands for Transportation Alternative Program. And they are competitive grants, and we ultimately have to adhere to those federal requirements, and then working with the township on things like path alignments, beginning and endings, and road crossings. So be happy to talk more offline with you, Wei. I know we've talked at length in the past, but be happy to address some of those concerns that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
And that Matt is our Director of Engineering. We forgot to introduce him at the beginning. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So we do have, we've got another raised hand, but we've got a couple of questions in chat. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. So this question comes from Chris, and his question in chat is, are you able to be specific about where safety railings will be located for this project?
So as of right now, the only location that we're calling for safety railing is over where we're doing that culvert extension. So for the rest of the pathway, it's pretty close to the natural grade. And so if there isn't a drop off, then we don't require safety railing. But as you get over that culvert area, there's actually a wetlands there, and we're going to be up above that. And so because of the potential for falling, we've put a railing, and I apologize, I don't know the exact width of it. It's going to be 100 feet or so. I apologize, I don't know the exact length, but it'll just be for a short time as we're crossing over that culvert. That's the only one we have planned.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Another question here. Oh, I'm sorry, Bert, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I'll mention, having worked on the previous segment of the trail, the Mathi Botanical Gardens Trail, we had a similar detail for our safety rail. So if you're familiar with that trail that's currently in service, that's open, the safety rail would be similar in nature to that detail. We needed more safety rail on that segment of trail, just based on the alignment, some of the curves, some of the drop-offs. There was a greater need there for safety rail. As Michelle mentioned here, it's primarily there where the culvert crossing is going to be located.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So we do have, let's see, this question comes from Emily, not from me, but from another Emily. And so she is asking, in order to promote pedestrian safety from Church Street and Dixboro, are there any pending solutions to consider a crossing similar to this at Garden View or at Mathi, or Garden View / Mathi?
I can take that one, Emily.
Okay.
Certainly,
Oh, sorry.
we work with a lot of our communities and townships to promote pedestrian safety. That could be a potential future TAP funded project, but as of now, we aren't going to provide a connection easterly from the Plymouth and Dixboro intersection, but certainly in discussions with the township about potential future funded projects. And that one would be Superior Township, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Let's see, we've got, now we've got a raised hand from William Mercer. So William, you should be able to unmute yourself now if you want to ask your question. We should be able to hear you. Can you hear us? Oh, let's try this again. Hold on a sec. Are you there, William?
Okay. Yes, I am. I have two questions. In the informational meetings at the start of the project, I'm on Parkside between Garden View and Ravine. We were assured there'd be consideration for a visual barrier between the trail and the back of our houses. Is that still on the table?
Currently, right now, there's a berm between the houses that is topped with vegetation. And that is not going to be impacted by this construction. So there will be a visual barrier between your homes and the trail, because we're actually going to be down below the level of that berm. We're pretty close to at grade where the road is. So that's going to remain.
So Michelle, the answer is no for any additional funding for the barrier in the back.
As of right now, that's not planned for part of the project.
Okay, second question, the flashing beacons at the crossing at Garden View, are those flashers road focused? I'm not sure what word Aaron would use, or will they light up the back of the house?
So you're asking about basically, is it going to have light that's going to shine into your home? Is that what you're asking?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me ask him to
Oh,
unmute.
sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
apologize.
No,
I just
it's
want to
okay.
make sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I think talking about like here.
Like light pollution, basically.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Right.
William. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yep, that's just it. I'm curious if that's gonna light the back of the houses.
Those lights are actually focused downwards. So for instance, the crosswalk sign that's going to be up above will be focused straight down at the road. So there shouldn't be a light pollution issue with that. The flashing beacons, it's one of those things, as we say, if you're looking off in the distance and you see a light, you'll be able to see that light, but it's not necessarily shining into your home. So I don't anticipate that there will be any issue with it shining in your house. Will you be able to look out your window and see it? That is a possibility depending on the amount of vegetation that's present. In other places where we have put this in, we haven't noticed a huge issue with it shining into people's homes.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. So here's another question from chat. This comes from Commissioner Schenk, and she just wanted to know how many trees greater than 6 inches will be removed. And we have another tree question. I'll combine them so we can answer both of those. The other tree question was about consideration of some of the larger mature oaks that are near South Ridge side. It seems like they're in the area of the pathway. What considerations do we have for those? So if you could just talk a little bit more about trees.
I believe that in the contract, it calls for the number that we have called out is 19 trees, 6 inches or above. So there's 2 general places that you'll see most of that. Right across from Garden View, there's a kind of a little cluster of birch trees, fairly tall birch trees. Those unfortunately will need to be removed in order to accommodate the trail. There's a few between make sure I get my roads right, between Ravine Court and Amanda Drive. A lot of those are smaller. It's actually more brush and kind of a dense bush type things in that area. The rest of the trees, most of them are up in the Marshall Nature area between the roadway, and there's some electrical poles that are currently there. And that's where we're putting the trail. That's where most of the trees are. I'm not sure the exact location of the mature oaks that you're talking about. I do know that in our contract documents, we did not call for anything larger than 18 inches to be removed. So that would make me think that possibly the mature oaks you're talking about would not be impacted, but I can't say for sure because I'm not sure of the exact location you referred to.
And Michelle, thanks. That question came from Jay Miller. Jay Miller, if you want to provide an email to us in chat, we can look into it, and we've got the exact address. They provided that in chat as well, Michelle. We can look into that and follow up with you on those specific ones.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep working our way through here. We've got another question. This comes from Karen. She's got 2. And her question is, for cars going east on Plymouth and then turning south onto Dixboro, will it be clear for cars not to accidentally turn right onto the trail itself, since it'll look like a paved, or it'll be a paved asphalt surface.
Yes, I don't think there will be any issue at that particular point. If you're going east on Plymouth and you're turning on Dixboro, the trail is a little bit separated from the road at that point, and it would look like a crosswalk, a pedestrian crosswalk going across the road. And so it's going to look like any other turn lane, and you would have a sidewalk there. You wouldn't think to turn onto the sidewalk. So there'll be concrete with warning, we call them detectable warning surfaces. Those are those little bumpy, the metal bumpy surfaces that will be there, and they'll be in red. It'll look like a crosswalk. You'll see the painting along the road showing it as a crosswalk. So I would not anticipate there being an issue with anyone pulling onto the road there, onto the trail, I'm sorry.
I'll also add that it's not unlike the intersection of Geddes and Dixboro Road. There's a signalized crossing there. There's right turn lanes. There's pathways on both the north and south side of Geddes Road. So, and we haven't had any issues with that. So it'll be much like that intersection.
Okay, thanks guys. Karen's other question was, well, are we going to be posting a detour or alternate routes during construction? I believe the answer is no, because there will not be a road closure. But Michelle, do you want to speak on that at all?
Yes, as of this time, because we don't have any plans to close the road for a length of time, those closures should be pretty short, like I said, that can be accomplished with the flagger. And so, but they, you know, we don't know if they're putting something up, if it would take a half hour, an hour or something. We will be issuing those road advisories that Emily was talking about. If you subscribe to those, typically we like to get those out to the public. We could say, you know, on these upcoming dates, there will be intermittent road closures so that you can know on those particular days to try to take an alternate route. But we don't have plans for signage on Plymouth Road at this point.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I was going to mention that too. So we will, as we get to those kind of milestones or before lane restrictions start, that kind of stuff, we will put out advisories and really encourage people to sign up for the email alerts that I showed. And I'll put a link right now to the chat of how you can get to the project page and get to subscribing your email address. So here, there's a link there in the chat. So, all right, we still have some questions. Let's see. We've got those. We're making progress here. Okay, so here's a question from Sharon, and she asks, are the plant curbs high enough to keep cars from using them?
Again, I would point to the Geddes and Dixboro, very similar curb type. It's a 6-inch curb. It's called a barrier curb, and it certainly works well. We don't have any issues with vehicles driving on the pathways down to the south, where it's a very similar intersection.
Yeah, we can actually, let's go back and we can show what that's gonna, our cross view here. Hold on a second. See our great construction pictures. So it's gonna be similar to this, right, Michelle, and right gang? Okay.
Yeah.
And then just to clarify, we had another question in chat about where it's going to be located in regards to the homes that are in the subdivision here. And if we're looking at this, it's going to be built in this grassy berm here between the line of electric poles and between the line of the road, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so
you can, oh, go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, so that's the berm I was talking about, and the vegetation on the top of that berm, that we do not have plans to impact any of that.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So I think we've gotten through all of our main questions. I know, Wei, we said that we will follow up with you and provide more conversation about the concerns that you'd brought up. It looks like, Karen, if you do want to ask a question, you can ask that in chat, or you can virtually raise your hand. And then I think we had asked, who was it? Jay Miller, if you wanted more information about those specific trees, if you would just provide us an email, or you can reach out. I'll go back to Michelle's contact information. If you want to reach out to Michelle directly, she can provide more information for you on those trees. So let me get back to that. Okay, well, Karen, if you've got more questions. She says she has a question in chat, but didn't say what the question was. So let's give her 1 minute here. Oh, looks like she wants to raise her hand. Okay. Karen, you should be able to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
I just can't type fast enough to get my question into.
No problem. Go ahead.
So my home bumps right up to this project just south of Amanda Drive. And we don't have the vegetation, and we have the berm. Well, we have some trees, but it doesn't really block the privacy. So I was interested in hearing that there's not going to be any added privacy vegetation added, because that's going to be a big difference behind our house. And then the berm, is it going to be coming up the berm at all in the width near our home? Because I'm closer to Plymouth Road, and that's a pretty big dip down there.
If you provide your exact address for us, you're welcome to email me or something, provide your address. I can show you a cross section of that particular area so you can see. But like I said, in general, we're fairly close to the current grade. But there'll be a little bit of fill, a little bit of cut in different areas. So if you get kind of pinpoint it for me, I can actually send you a cross section of that area so you can see how close it, you know, what the difference will be to what it currently is.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, so I think we've gotten through the topics addressed in chat and through our comments here. Again, here is Michelle's project or her contact information. We would encourage you, I'll put it in the chat one more time, of where you can subscribe to receive project updates. This is the website that I showed you, and there's a button there where you can subscribe to receive email updates. That's where we'll post the recording of today's meeting. That's where we'll have these meeting slides, and then that will actually post updates there too that will email out to you if you subscribe. So Matt or Michelle or Aaron, anything else you guys would like to add before we close up for the day?
Thank you, everyone, for attending and taking the time today. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thanks. We're excited to get started.
Sounds great. And we will send an advisory as we get a little closer to tree work starting Monday, hopefully. And then as we get closer to the start of pathway construction, we will send an advisory to those who subscribe. So thanks everybody for joining us today. And we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.